I'm J.D. Campbell. I am one of the founders of the Paranormal Seekers of Iowa. I can introduce a great lady here, someone I've come very close to the last year. I met her at this school actually last June. We were here during an AGH event. And I was here with one of my good friends. I've always wanted to work with the medium. So Cheryl was here, so we were introduced to each other, and I was skeptical can be. I've seen all this stuff on TV about, psychics and, the suggestive readings and all this stuff, so I was very standoffish when I got to talk to her. And so basically, she looked at me and says, I can read your aura. I know what you can do. I'm like, what? If we're here at this school that's so haunted, why don't you take me to some place that's, where all that activity is? So a couple hours go by and really nothing's going on. We're upstairs on the 3rd floor. Cheryl goes, we need to go to the kitchen and make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Like, this lady is nuts. This is absolutely nuts. So we go to the kitchen, and all this unbelievable stuff happens. I mean, stuff that just blew me away. So I'm like, okay, maybe she is a real. Then we got to kind of talk a little bit over Facebook and stuff. And she lives in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I live in Norwalk. So we met halfway one time at a truck stop. We sat there for about 3 hours. Just looked at each other and just talked. We didn't talk about personal things, just kind of like work-related things. And she starts looking at me and she starts telling me stuff about me as a kid. Stuff that only my parents know, stuff that my wife doesn't even know. She started telling me stuff about my kids. Only things that me and my wife know. Just little bitty details about things that I'm like, there's no way that anyone would know this besides someone with her ability. I mean, then we started working together during cases, and just the things that she knows, the things that she sees is just out of this world. I mean, she becomes another person with the channels. You can see the emotion on her face. She's just not herself. Whatever she has is 100% for real. I would go to back to her full information. So I guess that's my little introduction. So without further ado, you do.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming to this morning. I kind of want to give you a little synopsis about who I am. At the age of 11, I experienced a death experience, and kind of give you a little idea what happened to me. There's a lot of people out there that have no idea what I've been through, and I'm just going to kind of give you a little piece of that. When I was 11, my mom was a maid at a motel in Nebraska, and I'm not going to give you actual details where that's at because they've asked me not to. Later on tonight, I'm going to try to get pictures of where this event happened to me so that I can give you some evidence on what happened to me, because a lot of people know, but they've never been able to really give you something to look at. The other day I went to the motel and I asked for permission to get the pictures, and they said absolutely, so long as I didn't put them up on the internet. They've had several suicides here in the last, I finally confronted my situation after 42 years because there was just something about that event that really scared me. I was 11 years old. My mom, again, was a maid. And this little girl and I, sorry, pulling into you already. This little girl and I decided we were going to run through the motel up on like a second level. And as we were running around there, being, silly little girls, we decided to go inside the dumbwaiter. There's a dumbwaiter that would obviously go from the basement, 1st floor and 3rd, to transfer up all the linens, to the maids. So she and I decided we were just going to go ahead and get inside of that thing, and we were going to ride down to the basement and go see Viola, who was the maid, the laundry maid. So we climb inside the box, and as Chrissy was getting inside the box, she's looking at me. And I'm like, I'm going to get in there too. We're going to ride this thing down there and see Viola. We're going to have a great time. As I'm crawling into that dumbwaiter, it was a box probably about the size of this table, but square. So as she pushed herself against the box, I decided, okay, I'm going to crawl in. Well, when she was sitting there looking at me, I don't know what, and to this day there's reasons for what she did, and I learned about that, and I'll go to that piece in a minute. But when I got inside of that box, as I started approaching it with my head, here's the square opening, and as I'm crawling into that there was an octagon bar that went around the box. She had buttons that were red and green that she could push or stop and go, obviously. And when she pushed the button to go down, green button, I wasn't all the way in. My head was the only thing that was in. And when that bar came down and it started to go down, we were going to go down to see Viola, the bar was about this wide, and it went like this, caught the back of my head. And as that bar was dragging me down and got me right to the part where, you know, it would have went down in the hole, that bar caught my neck and pushed me down into it like this. And I had a death experience. And what I'm going to explain to you guys today, no one in this room should be afraid of death. What I experienced, I would do on the heart again. The feeling is total weightlessness. From every dimension I believe I went through to get to where I went, I have different ways of channeling and talking to the other side. I feel like I have received like keys to different dimensions. I want to kind of touch on that too because I really was excited to hear Brian explain that in his presentation. For the first time in my life, I finally understand what I went through and why. With the different dimensions, when I was traveling, well, first let me give you this. Imagine, this is the only way I can explain this. If you were to go to an airport, the great big lights that they use to bring in airplanes, if you were to put your face dead smack against that light and you couldn't see anything else beyond your peripheral vision except that kind of a light, that's what I saw. And in Christ, I tell you, I am not joking. That's what I saw. And as I started to travel, I felt very weightless. In fact, I could hear things that made no sense to me, but they make complete sense now to me, of course, now. But as I was going to where I was going, and I mean, this is going to sound kind of corny, but I could hear and see things that some people cannot, except if you're sensitive and you're able to see what I see. Well, when I got to my destination, all I could see was what we call shadow people. That's what I saw. But when I saw these shadow people, I knew they were part of my family. Hands down, the feeling was complete. However, I couldn't make out their faces, but I knew it was part of my family. When I came back, I have scars to prove what happened. On the back of my neck, I have skin that has been pulled. The deposits are there on the back of my neck. When I came back, I fell out of the box. And all I could see was this little girl screaming her head off, bawling, because she didn't understand what I had just gone through, but all she knew was something was wrong, terribly wrong. When I went and I ran to my mom, and I'm bawling, and I'm bleeding on the back of my neck, my mother took me to the hospital at that point in time. They said, "You're lucky you survived." And I'm really happy to be here today, because I could have died at 11 years of age. My first vision after that event was my brother's death. My brother was 19 years of age. He was my best friend. 19. I was 11. Pat and I did everything together. It was exactly in August when this happened to me. In November, I had my first vision. I was asleep, woke up, and I thought I had a dream. Then my brother had died. But in fact, that morning, my mother had to take my brother to work. My mother raised 8 kids. She was a trooper. And when we took Pat to work, I was sitting in the center, my brother was sitting to the right, and my mom was driving. My mom, of course, back then, you could backhand your children and it wasn't used. My mom had a hand, I swear to God, go clear back to the back of the station wagon and it would whip back like that and nobody ever knew what hit it. That's the kind of, parenting skills you had back then. Well, my mom, of course, she'd gotten in an argument with Pat and I'm sitting in the center. And I'm just listening to this. And I'm thinking, what the heck, who's gonna die? Why are you guys fighting? And just as my mom decided to backhand Pat like this, she caught me here, Pat got smacked. And I'm like, I look at my mom and I go, why didn't you do that? He's going to die tonight. And my mom looked at me kind of funny like, yeah, whatever. But it was fact. The morning, that following a.m. in the morning, the police knocked on our door and said my brother had committed suicide. He had hung himself at the Cornhusker Hotel on 13th floor. They didn't call it the 13th floor, but it's obviously to me. But he had hung himself with bed sheets. That was my first vision on my own brother's death, of all things, right? Of all things. Of course, being psychic at a young age, we all kind of hide. We don't want to be recognized for being crazy. So I hung in the balance until I was about 17 or 18 years of age. And I was able to come out of the closet with it. And when I did, of course, my family, thought I was wacko. Oh, well. I had to live with it until I was able to do my first one-on-one with family. Of course, I went to the family first and I was able to do some reads on my family. Things that, of course, I didn't know because they were out doing stuff that I didn't know about. My point is, what I want to talk about today, especially before I get into picking who I feel it needs me most, the thing about paranormal investigations and psychics and mediums. You guys gotta understand, we all have that. We all have that intuition. We are given a God's gift of intuition to kind of help us from danger. Things are gonna happen, and you know it's gonna happen. Well, of course, there's obviously reasons why this is happening. You need to pay attention. Don't ever not trust your gut. Like before in another seminar, it was dead on. Go into the gut. Listen to your heart, what you're feeling, and go with it because we're all psychic. We all have that intuition. And one thing I really want to point out that means the world to me is when you're working with the other side. Please remember, we are all here right now, and then when you get over there, are you going to want to be treated like how the people treat the other side? I mean, you got to understand that the behaviors that you have here will go with you on the other side. If you're working with the other side, compassion is everything. They have a story to tell. They don't want to hear you come in there and go, oh, I want to hear it from you, and blah, blah, blah. Guess what? You are not choosing them. They are choosing you when they are ready, and they can trust you that whatever information they're going to give you, that you just don't freak out about it or run from it, because obviously they're touching you for a reason. They're obviously communicating with you for a reason. Because you have a connection with them already. We are all connected. We are all connected as we are right now. We're going to all be connected over there. So trust in what they're saying to you. Trust them. Let them trust you, you trust them. Don't go in with a whole bunch of anger, and please don't go in and start yelling and screaming. I mean, let's face it, if you came at me right now and started yelling and screaming, do you really think I want to hear from you? Probably not. Come at me in a whole different perspective, and then probably I'm going to tell you my story. But it's all about compassion and love for the other side. I work in Christ, and it disappoints me, a lot of what I see in people. People just treat the afterlife as if it's a lot of fun and games. Well, no, it's not. They have feelings too. We all have feelings. So have compassion for the other side. Take care of them like we take care of each other here. The other thing I want to talk about is when you're recording, like we talked before about ADPs and stuff, and you're working with a psychic, it's really important that you guys trust your psychics, people that you can absolutely give credit to. There's been several times I've worked with PSI where I've walked into a room and I've been asked, oh, what is this guy's name, or who you talking with, blah, blah, blah. And if I can say the name and we can capture it later, then you've got validation that whoever you're working with is genuine.